We have more for your ears only. I'm Catherine Herzog.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. It's nice to know when we work together, we really can solve problems. That was Maine Republican Susan Collins on the Senate vote to permit the shift of FAA funds to end furloughs required by the budget sequester that caused major airline delays. The House quickly concurred, though some Democrats complained that the sequester cuts continued to distress the lives of poor, aged, and ailing Americans. Also in Washington last week, a number of Democratic leaders reported complaints from small business about costly new aspects of Obamacare, and a bipartisan group of lawmakers restarted efforts to revive a new gun control law. Now this.
The political winds blow left and right, polls rise and fall, supporters come and go. But in the end, leaders are defined by the convictions they hold. And my deepest conviction, the guiding principle of the administration, is that the United States of America must strive to expand the reach of freedom.
There was no shortage of inspiring rhetoric last week at dedication ceremonies for the George W. Bush Presidential Library, featuring all the country's living presidents, and not the least from Bush himself. Coming practically on the 10th anniversary of his painfully overstated Iraq Mission Accomplished speech, and as violence there rose again, mention of that war-torn nation was notably absent, as were other controversial aspects of Bush's war on terror, including enhanced interrogation practices recently judged to be torture and non-productive by an independent nonpartisan panel.
That policy and a number of Bush's other guiding principles that history may well judge a blemish on his legacy, including claims of extraordinary presidential power and so-called American exceptionalism, all have links to the little-known Federalist Society. Begun by a handful of disgruntled conservative law students, it became an influential intellectual powerhouse by the time of Bush's presidency, with members and followers at law schools coast to coast and at the highest levels of government and the judiciary. Its growth, impact, and prospects are examined in a new book titled The Federalist Society, How Conservatives Took the Law Back from Liberals by Michael Avery and Danielle McLaughlin from Vanderbilt University Press. And to talk more about it for your ears only, co-author McLaughlin is on the line now. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
When and where did the Federalist Society begin?
The Federalist Society was started at the universities of Yale and Chicago law schools in the early 80s, about 1982. And as the lead-in represents, it was started by about a handful of law students who were sort of disaffected by the prevailing liberal ideology of academia.
And how did it spread so far and recruit so many followers?
You know, they had a conference within their first year after these students came together. They were able to reach out because I guess they stood out from other students. The group, in its very earliest stages, was funded by, among other conservative philanthropists, the Olin Foundation, who basically believed in them from the very beginning, and from that point and therefore afterwards, the Olin Foundation has funded them with an enormous amount of unrestricted funds. The Olin Foundation helped them really build this institution. They were also helped at the beginning by Antonin Scalia, who was then a University of Chicago law professor, and he continues to this day to be a huge advocate for them.
You write that the Federalist Society's first real foothold was in the Reagan administration. What did that involve?
You know, Reagan came to power just as many of these founders were coming into the world, having obtained their JDs. At the time, Edwin Meese, who had been an advisor to Reagan in California, also came into the Department of Justice. He recruited these folks and really set them to work, working on a sort of a conservative, a conservative agenda for the Reagan DOJ.
But the Society's agenda seemed most fully adopted by the Bush administration, notably with ideas like the unitary executive. What did that entail?
So the unitary executive, in many respects, is a fairly well-accepted theory. At its most basic level, it basically says that there will be one president and one president only, as opposed to a small selection of governing individuals. It comes from Article 2 of the Constitution, which invests the executive power in the president, and that combined with executive privilege and the commander-in-chief power are basically the fundamental tenets of this theory. The debate ranges as to the strength and the scope of this theory, and what members of the Federalist Society have basically what they basically believe is that the unitary executive power is strong and broad. What is really different about the theory of the unitary executive as the Federalist Society has become a proponent of it is that basically the president is the ultimate arbiter of what is constitutional and what is not, particularly as it relates to the theatres of war making and foreign policy. But our view is that there's a fundamental incongruence there between pronouncements of the Supreme Court, most notably Marbury versus Madison, where the court basically said we are the ultimate arbiter of what is constitutional. There's really there's a disconnect there.
And how did the Society's thinking lead to the enhanced interrogation recently found to constitute torture by that independent panel?
Well, these the torture memos, which many of your listeners will be very familiar with, I'm sure, were written in large part by two Federalist Society members, John Yoo, who has subsequently gone back to University of California, Berkeley Law School after his time in Justice, and Jay Bybee, who after his time in Justice was nominated to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. These torture memos, the legal theory that defended the Bush administration's tactics were grounded in the theory of the unitary executive. And what they essentially said was, if the president believes that these various tactics are constitutional, then it doesn't matter what international law says. It doesn't matter what the Geneva Conventions say. What the president says goes.
Talk about the Society's concept of American exceptionalism and the role it played in the Iraq War itself.
American exceptionalism, in the view of many members of the Society, is fundamentally founded in the notion of sovereignty. American exceptionalism can be manifest in many different ways. And John Bolton, who is a long-time member, talked quite openly after President Obama was elected the first time that he did not believe in American exceptionalism. And the view of some of these folks is that you either believe in an American exceptionalism and you believe that in our absolute sovereignty to do whatever it is we wish to do on the world stage, or you don't believe in American exceptionalism. You believe that we should become more of a team player, we should obey various treaties that we've signed on to, we should participate in the United Nations, and we should be a part and play a role in global governance.
How does Federalist Society thinking and influence affect current debates on how the Boston bombing suspect should be handled, for example?
This has happened with folks that have been arrested and detained related to 9/11. Which system should these folks be tried under? Should they be tried as enemy combatants and therefore tried under military rules, or should they be tried within the civil legal system? And many proponents of trying enemy combatants under the military tribunals, that can be found in the Federalist Society.
Danielle McLaughlin is an attorney with Nixon Peabody, LLP in Boston and co-author with Michael Avery of the Federalist Society, How Conservatives Took the Law Back from Liberals, from Vanderbilt University Press.
Quote from the news, the chance to present their best cases on why they should not be deported. That was attorney Michael Steinberg after a federal judge in California bought his argument for the first time ordering legal aid for mentally disabled immigrants who cannot represent themselves.
Next, more on the military failure in Iraq. For your ears only.